Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. We are back. Maximize Mondays back after a 1 week hiatus. Took a week off. That week got a little crazy. If you've been with Maximize Monday since the start, and we're going on like 2.5, almost 3 years now, you are. Rachel is no stranger to the hot seat in the Maximize Monday chair. She's done this with me a few times years back, and we are having her back now as we are both in new ventures, new career paths since the last time we spoke on this show. But Rachel, how are you? How are things going for you in 2023?
Yeah, been a good year so far, a good month. And obviously, the year is getting even better getting to join you on this call. It's been a while, like you said, but feels natural. I feel good. But no, it's been a good year so far. And excited to see how the rest of the year plays out for sure.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. As someone who's frequented the co-host chair quite a bit, it's nice to have a familiar face back. I didn't have to do a whole lot of prep this time in terms of talking to you because we've done this before. So jumping right into it, 3, 2, 1. What's going on in Matt's week this week? As you can see from the hat, as you can see by my obnoxious posts all over LinkedIn, we are getting ready for the Super Bowl. The Eagles are in it. I am ready to either be excited or have my heart absolutely shattered. Either way, I will be used to it because I've experienced the highs and the lows as a Philadelphia sports fan. A lot of lows recently in terms of like getting to the championship game and then just losing. So fingers crossed, third time's a charm for Philadelphia sports here in this season. But we will see. Either way, excited to see the build up to that. And keeping within that theme, on Thursday of this week, I'm actually going to a Philadelphia Flyers game. So I'm going to get like my fill of Philadelphia sports in this action-packed weekend. I actually took the Friday off just to not have to drive back home from Philly that night and be a zombie in the morning, and B, not have to like fill my Friday with like all sorts of things to distract me because I'm gonna want to like laboriously study injury reports and watch footage and just like get hyped for the big game on Sunday. Because once it's over and football season's over, then well, I mean, I have other sports I follow, but it's not quite the same level of like the one game a week you can get hyped for. So that's really what's motivating me for the week ahead. Is as cliche as that sounds for a lot of the other episodes I film, where I'm always kind of talking about sporting stuff. This is one of those weeks where it's like a big deal for me. So in terms of goals for the week ahead, with me being off Friday, leaving a little early Thursday, I do have my teammate covering for me while I'm out, but want to make sure I'm tying up any loose ends, talking to all of my candidates that are in the process, giving them updates before I'm out so they kind of know where they stand in the process and where we are in the hiring process so that he doesn't have to do a lot of scrambling around and find out what's going on with where. I want to make sure that the hiring managers and the candidates are all in a good spot so that they can have a worry-free weekend as well. And then I have a few new positions that are opening up. So with that comes kind of the checking in on the job boards, making sure everything is posted properly, and if not, making sure we're getting everything fixed if it needs to be fixed. So and to go along with that, my win from the week before, I'm starting to try out new social media stuff. I've contributed some stuff to the company TikTok page. I am not really a TikToker. I don't know if you guys watching are. That is not my thing at all. I enjoy watching them. I think a lot of them are hilarious, but I kind of have like what I think is funny, and it's not really stuff that I would share like on a company page, like people getting pranked and whatnot. Isn't something that we can film for content on the company page. So it's been cool just kind of finding out new ideas, new things that we can post on our social media page, and getting to be a part of that team and contribute to those ideas has been fun for me. So with that, we've had some new posts this week that are kind of related to the big game and everything like that. So it's been fun kind of talking about that. So that's what I have going on this week. Rachel, what is going on in your world?
Yeah, my 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I'll start off with my motivators as well. They all have to do with travel in different ways. And so most, I guess, recently or coming up closest is next week. I am going on a personal trip with my mom to San Antonio. She has a work conference, a music conference that she's going to, and I am just tagging along. So yeah, so I have that coming up. And then at the end of this month, we actually have a staff or a team retreat. So our whole team is getting together in Denver. So been planning that. And I'm just so excited to see everyone in person. We're a fully remote team. So it's going to be good to see them all. And then I just have other plans later this year, like a cross-country road trip, got some weddings attending. So those three things, while they're all travel related, some sooner than others, are just motivating me to get some other stuff done first. I have a few goals along the way and after those things. So got to take some steps before and after those trips to make sure I stay on target for some of the things I'm working on, which is a good kind of segue into some of the goals I have. They're sort of longer term goals, but one that's coming up is I just finished writing a parental leave policy for the company. And so I'm working on getting that ratified by our leadership team by the end of this month. So we're a startup. So some of those things that are more natural for other companies to already have in place, we got to work on getting those in place as well, just so we can make sure to care for our people and their families. So that's one. And then my other is another kind of policy related thing is I'm working on a compensation philosophy and a compensation strategy. Again, we're a startup, so we want to make sure we have some consistency from role to role and job leveling. And so my hope is to have that by the end of this quarter. So by the end of March, to have that all ratified and underway. So within those goals, there's of course a ton of mini goals within that and a ton of other smaller details I need to do, whether it's with candidates and interviews and just like yours following up. But I do have these big picture goals that are much bigger and take a lot more time and kind of deep focus time that I definitely need to keep on my radar in the meantime. So, and then my one big win is much more personal, but I just made a drive in one day from Texas to South Carolina. Ended up being about a 15-hour drive with a dog. So, anytime there's a road trip that big in one day, anyone who's ever been in a car with an anxious dog knows that's definitely a win. So, but yeah, that's what's been going on with me lately.
Absolutely. So to kind of touch base in terms of, your position now that you're in and working for a startup, I know that that's kind of one of those things that some people avoid and some people really like to pursue those opportunities. So, for you and being in this position, what have you enjoyed the most about being a part of a startup company and getting to, be around for the groundwork that you're helping to lay?
Yeah, great question. So I think one thing, and I would say my favorite thing about it is I am definitely someone that enjoys having a breadth of experiences and a breadth of knowledge. And I get to do that. I don't necessarily have to be really specific on one particular thing. I can pull from different resources if I need to. But yeah, so I oversee the entire people operations function within, it's called Super Modular. And so I get to do a little bit of everything. I do a little bit of recruiting. I do a little bit of policy writing. I do a little bit of, personnel success and peer reviews and performance. So, I definitely love that I can bring in a lot of different skills from my past and kind of apply them all in different ways and different facets.
Okay. Now you've been in recruiting for quite some time. You and I have worked for the same company in a recruitment setting, and you've continued on in that type of position. So what are some things that you enjoy most about the recruiting industry, as crazy as it's gotten these past couple of years since the pandemic?
Yeah, one thing that I guess I learned along the way is that no one really goes to school for recruiting. So I feel like we all have one thing in common, and it's just that we sort of just landed here. And so it kind of brings us together in that sense. But I think because of that, it is interesting talking to candidates, especially those interested in recruiting, to hear why recruiting. There's so many different reasons why someone might want to get into it. And so because of that, my favorite reason is just talking to people throughout the recruitment process, whether that's interviewing for a recruiter or interviewing, like right now, I'm talking to developers and engineers, and hearing how they got to the point that they're at, whether it was today I talked to someone who they started in music. They had a deep interest in music that got them into music production, which got them into engineering. And so kind of the paths people take to get to where they are and to get to where they're going is super interesting to me. And the fact that I could be a piece of that process is one, I'm very honored, but also I'm just the curious cat in me just finds it to be really fun too.
Yeah, absolutely. So for a lot of recruiters, I think we all always hear about the candidate experience. So for you, what does that mean? How do you try to make sure that the candidates that you're working with, what are some things that you do, that extra step to make sure that throughout the process that they feel comfortable and confident in terms of what you're doing for them and working with you directly?
Yeah, for me, communication is probably the biggest part. I think we've all interviewed for jobs that we interview for, and then we're ghosted. We don't hear anything back. Maybe we follow up, maybe we don't. Maybe we just hope they reach out to us, the recruiter does, and we don't hear anything. And so I want to be as transparent as I can be within the process of what they can expect next. When will they hear from me next? So to that point today, I have several follow-ups to send to people, letting them know where we are in our decision process, how we'd like to move forward, or maybe how we maybe won't be moving forward. So just that little bit of communication of, yeah, where am I in this process? Will I be moving on? Just goes a long way. But also I think on the other side of that within communication is I try to keep with me this idea of setting the stage so people can represent the best possible versions of themselves. So my screens that I do with people are typically probably more informal than maybe other people's screens. They're more conversational, just so I can feel like I'm getting to know them and making them feel at ease, just as they're answering questions about themselves. And I hope that they can ask me questions as well, just to even feel more comfortable with who they're talking to, so that when we are comfortable, we tend to just give a better light on ourselves. So
Yeah.
so I think those two things, communication and just making candidates comfortable in the process as well.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Now, early on, you and I kind of used to bounce ideas off of each other in terms of building a brand and recruiting strategies. And it was a lot on social media in terms of what we could do. I know I was constantly borrowing your theme of focusing on my dogs and getting people hooked
For
just
Baby Fridays.
right, exactly. So how important do you think something like that is for recruiters, especially now with how competitive everything is, branding yourself and in terms of building your success off of your brand, as opposed to just the position you have, the salary you have, the company you work for?
No, it is huge. So, how I actually got my job that I have now is through my Twitter presence.
Uh-huh.
So, I have been on Twitter for, probably 10 years. And I started tweeting more about the industry I'm in. I'm in kind of the tech Web3 industry. And so I tweeted about that. And then at some point said, I'm looking for a new opportunity. And someone actually DM'd me on Twitter and said, "Hey, we're looking for someone to do some recruitment and some people success. Are you interested? Came across your Twitter." And so because of that, got some calls set up and ended up joining the team after that process. So whether it's LinkedIn, that has been huge for me in my kind of corporate recruiting career. In where I am now, my Twitter presence honestly does a lot for me to find candidates. And then, if I'm ever in the place where I need to move on to a new role, I definitely would lean on those social networks to potentially land, the next role I jump into. So, but yeah, just goes to show that people are watching. So that can be taken a good or maybe a bad way, but definitely use it to your advantage. I'm definitely glad I used mine and ended up where I am.
Yeah, definitely. So then, as someone who works, kind of for the candidate experience, and someone who is in recruitment, you and I talked briefly before we started recording about how popular recruiting is, and a lot of people wanting to get into that industry. But you also help people just get into new careers in general. So whether it's to someone wanting to be in recruitment or just someone wanting to find a new position overall, what do you feel is kind of the best advice you can give to a candidate starting on that path?
Yeah. I think one of the one of the biggest things that stick out for me when I'm talking to a candidate is for me to hear that they're excited about whether it's the industry, the role, the opportunity, whether we like it or not. Sometimes a recruiter knows when they're talking to a candidate in the first minute, if they want to move on with them. And so sometimes it takes the rest of the call to figure out why. And not saying that's necessarily healthy or good, but it's important to make a really great first impression in those very first few minutes on the call, whether it's over video, over phone. Show your excitement, ask questions. So if you want to be a recruiter, talk about, what drives you towards success. A lot of recruiting is about hitting certain numbers. So you got to be able to, be excited to make some phone calls, to reach out, to engage with other candidates, to maybe have a little bit of competitive or motivational spirit in you. But for any role, recruiters want to hear that you're interested in it. They maybe probably want to hear that you've done your research. And from that research, you gained even more excitement. So, but I think those two things for sure is, what will drive you towards success in that role? Maybe you have previous experience that will carry over. And then how are you actually excited about it? What have you learned about that role that kind of sparks that delight in you to want to make it part of your career path?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fantastic advice. And sometimes I think it's something that's missed by the candidate for sure, especially if you're being reached out to by the recruiter, the hiring manager. Sometimes you don't always do that homework because it's like, hey, you reached out to me, but make sure either way you are still kind of at least looking into the industry you're getting into, the company that you might potentially be joining. So you have those questions ready when they ask you what questions you have. Sure.
Yeah, and it goes the other way for a recruiter too. You got to win over your candidate. So don't put all the research on them. Definitely win them over. Give them a good spiel. Give them that value proposition. But on the other side, yeah, find out what might be interesting about this job. What do I want to learn on this next call, and how can I come prepared to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for jumping back on the Maximize Monday episode.
Yeah, feels like just jumping on a bike.
Absolutely. So if you aren't connected with Rachael, following her on Twitter, make sure you're doing that. Check out what she's doing in the recruitment people operations industry. Otherwise, have a great week ahead. Go Birds, and we will see you next Monday. Hopefully I'm in good spirits, but we'll see. Either way, have a great week ahead.
Have a great week. Bye, all.